Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and I'm here with a special video celebrating the 10th anniversary of this guy right here. It's the original iPad, first generation, which was announced on January 26th, 2010, so almost 10 years ago to the day. And I just wanted to take this device out and kind of share it here on the channel, share my thoughts about this iconic product, the last of the Steve Jobs era here that was announced, and just kind of share how this device has really impacted tablets and just kind of the smartphone and just the whole kind of technology space in general. Now, I never actually owned this device originally. I started with an iPad 2nd gen, but I did pick one of these up a long time ago, and I've had it there in my vault, and gosh, taking this thing out now, this at the time was considered a very modern tablet. I mean, this was positioned between a laptop and a smartphone as something that you would use to kind of read a book or read a newspaper, browse the web, or watch content. And yes, it is still working to this day, as you can see right there. But man, at the time, what was considered really incredible specs. So we had an Apple A4, 250 megabytes of RAM. You heard that right, megabytes of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, coming in at half an inch in thickness and weighing well over 1.5 pounds. The LTE version, 1.6 pounds. This was an amazing device, and just the fact that you could have that kind of iOS interface on a large form factor, 9.7-inch display. That was a display size they stuck to for a long time. But I remember this device and just being really mesmerized by it because it was just something you'd never seen before. Being able to go in and out of apps, and you can see just showing you about this original iPad running version 5.1.1. That's the last version of iOS that this iPad ever got, but everything still works, guys. 10 years later, this thing is still running, and I primarily use this now just to kind of originally for some games for my daughter when she was much younger, and really just to kind of have it as a part of the history of the iPad. And now, in terms of the evolution of the iPad, obviously, they went to different form factors eventually. The one, like I said, that I got originally was not this version. It was the iPad 2nd generation, and this one actually kind of slimmed down quite a bit. Still weighed quite a bit, but definitely slimmed down the bezels, and as you can see right here, this evolution was kind of slow for a period of time, but they definitely cut it down, because look at the back of this thing. It's an iconic device, and yes, you have that lightning connector, you have the speaker grills, but man, this thing was so heavy, and you could seriously just injure someone. It's made so premium. It's made of this dense aluminum that honestly, this thing feels like it could last another 50 years easily, and that's the beauty of iPad. It was such a premium feeling device at the time, and yes, the bezels were huge, but they eventually did get smaller, and they eventually kind of morphed into what we see now. This is the first time showing on the channel, the 10.2-inch budget iPad, and this one I just got recently, guys, but you can see how it eventually continued to evolve, and I'll kind of put them this way like so. And you had in the iPad 3, which was the first one with the Retina display, and the iPad 4, a continuation of the other form factor, till finally you got to what was called the iPad Air, which is really what this form factor was, with the still large bezels top and bottom. Now, the original iPad Air, if I'm not mistaken, came out in 2013, and that was one of the first to have this form factor. It was not laminated, but then you had the iPad Air 2, which did have a laminated display, and eventually you started seeing these much thinner form factors like this iPad right here. And eventually you got to what we have now, which is the latest generation, the Pros and the Pro releases. We had the 9.7-inch, then the 10.5, finally culminating in the releases of the iPad Pros 11 and 12.9. And I will show you right here. And this is by far the most stark contrast that you can see. The separation of almost 10 years of design. Look at these giant bezels compared with the bezels you see now in this, my 12.9-inch iPad Pro. It is unreal how far we've come, and clearly the display technology, yes, it still is LCD, but it is completely laminated, and the resolution is just so much higher. You can just kind of see the edges here also are so skinny. This device, if I'm not mistaken, is around 5.5 millimeters. In fact, one thing I've always noticed is that if you look at these two devices kind of from the side there, you could almost imagine that the original iPad was about the same thickness, but no, it wasn't, because it had this huge, almost iMac-like bulge And that kind of illustrates it very well. A much thicker device than what we see now with these iPad Pros. So the iPad has just evolved so much, but I want to say that the original vision of this iPad first generation is still there. You have the dock, you have your icon of apps, and yes, you can include other things now like widgets. You can do other stuff within iOS 13, iPadOS now rebranded, but the original kind of intent of the device is still the same, but it has definitely now moved into more of a laptop replacement with the inclusion of things like the smart keyboard, which has definitely made that a possibility now. There was originally a smart keyboard for this iPad first gen, but it was almost like a desktop keyboard that you could plug in at the bottom. And what an incredible difference in performance. We've gone from an Apple A4 with 256 megabytes. Guys, let me say that again, 256 megabytes of RAM to this Apple A12X now in this iPad Pro. So RAM upwards of even 6 gigabytes. So compared to 256 megabytes, you can see what a giant gap in performance. And yet when you move around the interface of this original iPad, it's still, yes, it doesn't have the ProMotion. Yes, it's using a very antiquated, non-laminated display, but it's just incredible to think after all these years how this thing works. And that is why I keep it with me, guys, just to remember, and just remembering, guys, how far we've come in technology from 2010 to 2020, and I can't wait to see what the next generation of iPads, of tablets in general, and this form factor will bring to all of us here in the new decade. Anyways, that's it for this quick video here on the iPad first generation. Let me know if you want to see any other comparisons with tablets, with iPads, and also let me know if you wanted to see a full review. I never did it for the channel because I didn't think there'd be much interest in it, but of this 10.2-inch iPad. This is the budget iPad, $329 US dollars. It costs here around 2,500 Hong Kong dollars, and I've been using this as kind of my main content consumption device when the Pro just is a little bit too big for use. Let me know if you'd like to see a review of that as well. Anyways, first tablet video here in a long time, but it's an iconic tablet, the iPad, celebrating its 10th anniversary. Happy birthday, iPad, and here's to many more years to you as well. That's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up, and if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for future updates. Stay tuned, guys, and very soon we'll be looking for some new tech to check out. Stay tuned for that as well. Future phone releases and all this stuff. It's an exciting month coming up in February here on Frankie Tech. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech, signing off. Have a good one.